Carlton King, the former Scotland Yard Special Branch and MI6 officer and the author of Black Ops.
I was undercover for Special Branch in a jihadi organisation.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe for free.
My name is Carlton King, and welcome to the Black Spy Podcast, the show which shines a light on the world of secret intelligence, national security, and armed governmental personal protection operations, and also looks into the world of geopolitics. Indeed, that is the area that we generally look most into now. Why? Because that's the area that affects most of our listeners. That's the area that they can see has an effect on them. Today, which is surprisingly Season 5, Episode 1, I brought back my counterpart, my main man, Dan the Man. How you doing, bud?
Yeah, not bad, thanks, Carlton. How you doing?
Very well, thank you very much. So you're going to ask me, Dan the Man generally comes in at the end of season, and we do an end of season run as we did last week. But the reason why I'm doing it now is because we had a couple in... Well, Dan, you say what happened, you know?
Yeah, so obviously we had recently, we had the school shooting in the US, and that basically created a lot of chatter from the public. So a lot of people just wanted to really pick your brains on it. What's your views on gun control in America? Your views on... Well,
just to say it around you, mate.
Yeah, essentially. I think, obviously, as well, and this isn't just going to be a question. I mean, I think this is something that's happening regularly now. So I think we could really have the whole episode just discussing this subject, really. And we can take it from there.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I looked at some stats, and I got friends in the US who's given me kind of a steer as to how they feel. And looking at it, the first thing is we should orientate what is a mass shooting. So the way it's seen by the US law enforcement is a shooting of 4 or more people. So they have to be shot. They don't necessarily need to die, but they do have to be shot. And it's in a single incident. So that means that something's happened and 4 people are shot. Now, to me, if that's in the United Kingdom, that's a big deal. I think if that's in Germany or that's in... Well, I know it is. If that's in France, it's a big deal. Yeah. But it seems as though if it's in the US, it's kind of normal. Because when I look those stats up, that happened, wait for it, 692 times in the United States in the year 2021. So
that's a crazy number, isn't it? That's 2 a day. Two mass shootings a day.
So basically, you're in any city, any town, and you're a police officer, you probably come across this.
Yeah.
So you maybe go out with that in your mind, that today a mass shooting might happen. Now, also, what I had to look at was what are the stats in terms of Americans being shot. And in 2020, when was it? 2020, I think the last figures are for it. But obviously it would have changed as time goes on. On average, it's about 40,000.
Shot throughout the year, you're saying?
Yeah.
And that's mass shootings and
that's
not
sorry.
That's just people being shot in general.
That's people dying from gunshots.
That's people dying. Oh, okay.
That's people dying.
Okay.
So I'm going to make that clear. That's people actually dying. I mean, that's an incredible figure. Because when I look back at the Vietnam War, which lasted, 10, 12 years of that, they only lost 50,000 soldiers. So That's people dying year in, year out, on average. Okay? Year in, year out. So, itself, that figure is an incredible figure. But when you understand they've got 400 million guns in circulation.
In fact, on that note, I did actually do a bit of research myself, and I was looking at it, and it's now got to a point where the average person has more than one gun in America.
It's frightening, isn't it?
The stats, yeah.
Why?
I think it's 120 guns per 100 people is what the official figure is.
So tell me, what's your feelings? Why do they need that?
It's a tough one to answer, really, isn't it? It really is. I mean, I think it's probably started off as they think it's a good idea to protect yourself. But now, has it got out of control? How can they stop this now? How can they pull back all the guns off the streets? How can they prevent these mass shootings from happening? What's the solution?
But surely the solution isn't, for one, selling more guns to the people. I understand what you're saying, because the argument would be everybody can get a gun who wants one because there's 400 million of them, and there's only 350-odd million, 370 million Americans. So everybody can get one who wants one. The problem is also, I should add, which I didn't add up to now, is that unlike in many other countries where they do have some gun ownership, a lot of these now are military weapons, assault rifles.
That's the problem.
You know, I mean, in the latest shooting in that school, the doctor said, the coroner, when he went there, said he couldn't identify people because this geezer's using automatic weapons and armour-piercing rounds, and the children are ripped apart, and it's legal. I mean, this is. I'm laughing because it's not funny, but I can't get my head around the fact. Why do you want an assault rifle? Okay, let's argue it's a big country. People do a lot of hunting, etc., etc. But if the gun you're using in your hunting is going to rip the animal apart, clearly that's not a hunting gun. The only reason that assault rifle is there for, and I know assault rifles. I fire them. I'm trained on them in order to do my work. And I know that the whole job of that, indeed, in the United Kingdom, I mean, this is the thing. We were trained with rounds that wouldn't damage people, and they're getting as police, as national security figures, to defend our more senior politicians. We were in the UK using rounds that would not damage people properly, right? Now they're using rounds of warfare that do damage people.
Yeah, like holotips and stuff like that.
Well, they're meant to be illegal, but yeah, I mean, armour-piercing rounds that can go through bloody metal and kill people. I mean, I can't see the sense of it. I don't know how it's allowed.
Even the fact that I've just mentioned holotips there and you're saying that's illegal, to me that seems crazy. That why can a holotip be illegal? What's the point of a gun is to put someone down to kill them, essentially, isn't it? So what difference does it make whether it's a holotip or not? Well,
because that's dragging everything with it. When it hits you, when it comes out the back, it's dragging a whole load of stuff out with you. But I know in some places they still have this. In America, it's acceptable. So what I'm saying to us, it's illegal in the United States, but in America, this is seemingly acceptable. So
the fact that they've got these assault weapons, you're saying, these automatic weapons, do you think that played a part with, obviously, the latest shooting and the police? I know that there's obviously a lot of talk around the response from the police.
Yeah, cowardly response from police instead, etc., etc.
So what's your view on that? And do you think that the fact that this person did have an automatic weapon going into the school played a part with this?
Absolutely, because I think they're faithful. I think just because I'm a police officer, do I sign up to commit suicide? Well, I don't think I do. So the question then comes, do you go in when you know there's a problem? Well, your heart may be telling you, let's go in, let's save these kids. But maybe your brain's turning around saying, let's not. Now, there was a case in the old East Germany, shortly after Germany became one unified state again. And there was a shooting in there. I think it's about 10 years afterwards. I don't know, something like Magdeburg's coming in my mind, but it's one of the old East German states. And there was a mass shooting in there. And an officer went in and he got his head blown off, because that's what they felt they had to do. He's got a weapon, he's got a sidearm, so I'm going to go in, because his colleague said, well, see what's happening. So I'm first on the scene, see what's happening. He goes in, bang, he's shot dead. So...
But isn't that something that you are aware of prior to
I don't think you sign up for that. I don't think you sign up to be killed.
I understand that. I understand that. But you're aware of the dangers, and you are signing up to a job that comes with those dangers. And you know that there's a possibility that one day I may have to respond to a school shooting. Okay?
Yeah, but not nonsensically. See, if you take England now, England, Scotland, Wales right now, if there were such a thing, you would not go in. Because most of you are unarmed anyway.
They wouldn't be allowed to.
Right? So you wouldn't go in. You'd put a cordon around it. You'd just cordon it off, try and stop people from coming in. And then you'd wait for, which is exactly what these guys did, wait for the people to come who are well and trained in order to do that, which is their SWAT teams in America. Now, what I know has happened in America is that a lot of the police forces, not all, obviously not this one, they've provided their people with assault rifles to counter assault rifles.
Yeah.
And that happened with that shooting in Los Angeles when those guys had all Kevlar on them, were walking out in the street.
No, the bank robbers.
Like bank robbers, those lunatics just putting rounds down left, right and centre. And rounds were dropping off them because they were Kevlar'd up. The whole body was Kevlar'd up. Right? So they then said, right, you guys get assault rifles. And then people said, well, hang on, you're saying assault rifles? This is militarising the police. And unfortunately, because they don't control their police shootings, by the way, I think in police shooting-wise, I think they kind of shoot dead, like... Did I have a figure of 3,000 or something like that?
It's just a crazy...
It's a crazy figure. So, because they're not training the police not to shoot people, obviously when people say, well, here you are, mate, here's an assault rifle for you, they say, oh, militarising the police, we don't like it. So then they only give them to SWAT teams. So then you still got the problem of waiting for the SWAT team to turn. Or 10 of you go in and do bits and bats and do it together. Now, I can imagine on big city forces, you probably would have got a response that would orientate yourself to that, because the big city police would be more orientated. A small little town like that, I don't think they're thinking that way, and that's how you have no command and control.
I don't know how true this is, but so some of those police were going in apparently and saving their own kids.
That I've not heard of.
Have you not?
That I haven't heard of. That's interesting. I've not. If that's the case, then it's outrageous. But I've not heard of that. I haven't heard of that at all in any way, shape or means. But if that is the case...
Yeah, I read something about that some of these police were going in and rescuing their own kids.
Then that's outrageous.
And had left.
But maybe their kids were amongst kids that they saved subsequently. That might well be the case. Especially if what you're saying is they've gone into a part of the school where the person wasn't perceived to be. Because this is fluid, isn't it? These are fluid situations. And I don't think that people really understand what it's like turning up to an incident. Even just a basic incident. I mean, I can remember one of the things when I was at Hendon at the training college, they used to do this all the time. It's you walk around the corner, and I'm not going to pretend I'm a big uniform man. I was only in uniform for 2 years, which was the basic period you had to do. And then I came into special branch, which is, a completely different type of working and obviously playing calls, because you're a detective and you do that different type of work. But as a uniformed officer, you turn the corner and you see a crowd of people. You can't then go, oh, let's go back.
Yeah.
No, they don't. So they have to teach to people, normal people, what happens when you turn up that. Because what happens is, invariably, having done that 2 years, the crowd opens up and you see something. That's the first time you see what it is. Mm-hmm. And they say, oh, an officer's here. You're going to deal with it. Now, it could be anything. But you're the man who's meant to deal with it. Yeah. Or woman, right? You don't even know what it is, first and foremost. It might be anything. Mm-hmm. But you're the guy who everybody opens up for, right? And then you come in, be it a first aid job, be it somebody drowning, be it whatever. If you can't swim, it's a drain. What are you going to do then? It's always a man on a roof or whatever it is. He wants to throw himself off. You've got to deal with it. And you're the man to deal with that. So it's not, turning up at incidents is not easy. It's not easy at all. And I take my hat off to those uniformed guys who turn up day in, day out to deal with incidents just like that. At a moment's notice. Specialists now have an understanding. They're turning up, shooting in a school. So they already got the mindset, shooting in a school, what we're going to do, how we're going to go in, what's the, you have a thing called the snake, which you go in behind people, you're covering all angles, blah, 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 with your weapons, because you don't know how many they are, you're just seeing a shooting. the argument could be one guy's turned up with a weapon, but might be him and 4 mates who've all decided to kill themselves that day, and they're going to take out as many old bill as they can whilst they do it. So you don't know. So you're dealing with incidents from the perspective of, I don't know what I'm dealing with. But at least when you're a specialist, you've got an understanding of that, and you go in as a specialist.
And what do you think then? What do you think is the reason for all of these shootings? I mean, is it just the fact that there are that many guns out there? They are so easily accessible, or is it a mentality? I think that also plays into it.
What do you think?
I think it's a combination of a whole host of things. I think as well, you can even look at what care are some of these people getting mentally through their GP, through their doctors. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, for that amount of cases to happen every year, there has to be a reason why these people are going doing this. You're not mentally stable if you're going and shooting up a school. Let's be real.
Right.
So are there cases where a lot of these people who are going in and shooting schools are former students or current students of a school? Should maybe signs have been picked up previously? Yeah, I mean, you've got to look at all of these sorts of things. I don't think it's just one factor. I don't think it's just, there's too many guns out there. I think it's a combination of a whole host of things, but it's a tough one, really, isn't it?
I was watching US News the other day, and basically what they said was that after Valdi, the very next day or the day after, somebody called in and said, listen, a fella said he's going to shoot up our school, student. Mm-hmm. They went in to this guy's house, and he had a whole load of weaponry. And apparently he was planning to do it. This is something like in California or somewhere. So there is clearly a mentality in the United States. And I'll tell you what I think, and I may be totally wrong, but hey, this is just my opinion. I think the United States is a country that's all about fame and fortune. And I think that if you haven't got fortune, maybe fame is just good enough. And if you shoot up a school, for that moment, you become famous and powerful. You know, you're powerful. You're killing people. The old police are coming. I'm on TV, this, that, and the other. I think some people crave that.
So it's a psychological thing.
I think it's a psychological craving. And I think because they've got the kit there, because they're playing, I'll even say they're playing computer games killing people and have been desensitised, I think, personally. Mm-hmm. I think people are being desensitised from a very young age. 6, 7, 8, 9 playing computer games, shooting people. Now, people say, well, they play computer games all over the world. They play computer games in Japan because they make half of them. They do. But you see, in Japan, they don't have 40% of all the world's guns in their country. You know, America has 40% of all the world's guns. I mean, you've got to ask yourself a question. What happens there? So in Japan, that same kid might think, you know what, I'd shoot a school. Oh, I can't get a gun. Right? That might be the difference. Right? So there's that. I also think machoism is a massive problem in the United States.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because when I looked at the stats, it said that of the homicides, between 19 years of age and 25 years of age is where most deaths occur on homicides. Actually, there's more people kill themselves in the US, apparently, by committing suicide, but those are old white guys often. Right. Now, it appears to be that young black men, between that, are killing each other at a greater rate as youngsters now. Nowhere at the level of white guys, but as youngsters. So, to me, what that shows me, I believe, is black folk have been treated like dogs in that country forever and a day, and you then grew up saying, I'll never be treated like a dog.
Yeah.
Right. So now they're in an area, and it's generally all blacks in the area, which you don't get in other places. They're in an area, and some other black guy says to another black guy, and I'm not going to be disrespected, I'm going to show you I'm not disrespected, and he pulls out his gun. And now we got into a fight. Right? So now he's shot. Because he isn't going to be disrespected like his ancestors. Right? And this is the problem. And I think the whole thing of America built on, you know, everybody constitutionally can have right of arms. In fact, there's only 3 countries in the world now where constitutionally you can have the right to bear arms. Okay. And when I look at it, it's the United States, it's Mexico, and it's Guatemala. And those are amongst the 3 nations where most people are getting killed.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and on that, you mentioned Japan as well. I looked at the stats. Now, I looked at a study that took school shootings between 2009 and 2018. Okay. Now, what's crazy is that the US had 288 school shootings between those 9 years. Canada, 2. France, 2. Germany, 1. Japan, Italy, UK, 0.
No, that's the one I'm talking about in Germany. Just the one.
Exactly. Yeah. Unbelievable numbers.
Absolutely. Why are you shooting up a school?
Yeah.
You know, I can see I can't see the macho, but let's say I could see the macho. Let's say I live under a macho regime and to be called down is the worst thing that could ever happen to me. Let's argue that. And add to that, maybe there's some monetary element within it. Maybe there's, and I'm stereotyping there, maybe some drug sale or whatever in it. Yeah, that's a stereotype which I don't really want to give. But let's argue that is an aspect. So you could actually see that. But why do you turn up at school and start shooting everybody in the school? I don't understand where that comes from.
I mean, I think a lot.
And by the way, those are all white guys. Generally.
Yeah, you mentioned black guys. Obviously, the school shootings are generally white people.
Yeah.
White males.
Yeah. Albeit the first one was that female, a white female, wasn't it? You know that move, that song, I Don't Like Mondays? That's what she said when she started. She was sniper, she was snoopers. All right. The first real one that is known about, and the Boomtown Rats wrote a song called it, I Don't Like Mondays, was a white woman or girl who basically sat outside a window and just started shooting everybody in the schoolyard.
Was she a student of school, or was she just a
Had been at one stage, but then was just shooting people in the yard. Right? And she was a great shot because her dad had brought her up shooting. Right? So she just bump picking teachers off, picking students off to shooting.
Yeah.
Right? So clearly, it's obviously mainly white men, but she was a white woman or white girl, and the other one was a white boy. And the others are mainly white boys. Men, boys, whatever. By the time they're teenagers, I'm going to call them men. You know, the old-fashioned 13 and you're a man type thing. So I'm going to call them that. So these guys and gals have chosen to shoot people. So the question is, why is this gun violence something they want to do? Why are they doing it?
Well, you see, obviously, I think a lot of it, when you look at the people that are doing these school shootings, they're predominantly people who are they're outsiders. They haven't got many friends at school. The friends that they do have would be deemed as the geeks or the ones who are a bit strange.
Yeah.
So there is probably some instances where these people are probably going to school and they're hating it. They're getting bullied by people, and then they think, and again, it comes down to this macho-ness and this thing that I'm not going to let you keep getting away with this. I'm not going to let you keep getting away with this. And eventually they go one step too far and it all blows out of proportion and they go and shoot their school.
It's the final payback.
It's the final payback, yeah. It's the final payback. I think that's what it is.
But that doesn't explain junior schools, does it?
Yeah, exactly. And also as well, the same things are happening in every country all over the world in terms of people being bullied, and they're not shooting people.
It's true.
And even in countries where they may have access to guns, they're still not shooting as many people as what they're doing in the US and going to schools. You're not seeing it happen over here with kids going into schools and just knifing people. It's not happening.
No, very true. I mean, look, we saw the shooting in Nigeria the other day, right? But that's Boko Haram. That's a terrorist organisation killing people under terrorist perspective. Exactly. And that's an abnormality in Nigeria. Right, so let's look at some figures. You know, we talk about this because people think, oh, well, Senator Cruz, okay, going for the presidency of the United States, went last time, going to go again. He's got a lot of support. Everybody looking at him, well, Cruz, he might be a next president of the Republican Party. Brilliant, he might be our president, should be the leader, right? And this is a guy turning around with no answers, saying it's nothing to do with guns, why people are being killed. So I asked the question, why is that? And then one person said to him, well, why in America? He said, it doesn't just happen in America, it happens everywhere. Now, the reporter, I was very angry, Channel 4 reporter, should have said, no, it doesn't. It doesn't happen everywhere else.
Is there a bit of brainwashing in it then? Do the American people believe that?
No, but this is a Channel 4 reporter talking to her. Right, I can imagine the Americans believe that because they know no better because they just told their news. But the Channel 4 reporter should have turned around and said, no, that's rubbish. People are not killed everywhere like this. It's just in your country, right? Can he then say, "Oh, you're an American hater"? Is it what it is? Everybody wants to come to America to live. Well, number one, not everybody wants to come to America. That's the first thing. But no, there's nothing wrong with the country. But I'm just saying that everybody wants to go, so we have to look at reality. I'm not calling the country down. What I'm saying is that sometimes people have to look outside of what they think is normal for themselves and see in other lands. So let me give you the point. Yes, Brazil has by far the highest amount of these kills. 49,000 in 2019. Those are the figures. 49,000 people murdered. Right. Killed with guns. Bang. Killed. US is next with 37. This is 2019 actual figures. 37, and I've just rounded them up. So it's 30,100 and whatever, but I've rounded it down on that one. So 37,000 American. Venezuela comes next. Now take into account Brazil in the favelas are nigh on fighting a civil war.
Yeah.
Right? So that's you've got Brazil there.
Yeah, there's a reason.
Right, there's a reason. A wrong reason. It's a nasty racial situation in Brazil. You've got a president who's basically said to the army and the police, the military police do a lot of the stuff in Brazil, fill your boots, sort the favelas out. Right. So, but that's what it is. So then you've got the US second to that, the wealthiest country in the world by far. So it's not as though it's a poor country where people are trying to get what they get. It's the wealthiest country in the world by far, right? And that's why the senator's saying everybody wants to come to America because everybody wants to be a part of that wealth. But clearly they're not all obtaining it. Then you've got Venezuela, a country in civil war now. Yeah. Proxy civil war, even if it's not. And that's 28,000. And then, of course, you've got Mexico. A country that is absolute, and by the way...
Drug cartels is just what I wanted to say.
Killing people left, right and centre.
Yeah.
And of course, the arms are coming from the United States.
Exactly. And from Brazil, I suppose they're being shipped to Brazil. Yeah,
the arms are coming from the United States. This is the problem, because these South American lands are getting most of their arms from the US. Exactly. And that's a fact. It is known, right? And the drug game, which they're trying to keep on top of, is the one that's causing most of that violence. Then we get India. 14,000. People, 700, so up it's more than 500. So yeah, but then when you look at that's a population of 1 billion, 0.2 or something like that. You know, don't get me wrong, they shouldn't be killing anybody, but you can see how that might come around, and the police are handy. So that's, to me, is a strange situation. You know, as I said before, when you look at it and you look at the people who are being killed in those nations, you think, yeah. And some people might say, those type of nations. But when I say to you, Zimbabwe example, country that had a whole mass problems, that still its inflation is incredible. People are poor, right? Only 0.03% of the population die by way of gun violence. Right? And people aren't being killed. So that's an incredibly low figure of people dying, of people being killed by gun violence. You know, so what's your reasoning then there? I mean, let's look at the United Kingdom. Okay? We're looking at, in the UK, 0.23. So of 1,000 people, as I said, we're in Zimbabwe, it's of 1,000 people, it was 0.39. Of 1,000 people, right? If you look in the UK, it's 0.23, even less. If you look at Japan, it's 0.06. A country with 127 million people in it.
Yeah.
Right? Why are they not out killing everybody?
Yeah,
right? You know, you got to look at this. Germany, we mentioned Germany because of the shooting. Germany's got 0.9, actually, gun death. So you've got to question, why is the United States per 1,000 all the way up at 12.6%?
That's crazy.
Why is it?
It's crazy, I know.
Why are they all the way up there? And everybody else is looking down here at 1 point. Australia, 1.5 or something like that. They had a shooting, banned guns, next thing nobody killed.
Hasn't been a school shooting since.
Hasn't been a school shooting.
Same here we had, Dunblane, did we have?
Yeah.
And then we put stricter gun laws in. We haven't had a school shooting since.
Yeah. So why is it? You know, you've got to ask yourself these questions. And why do the politicians turn around and say, it's nothing to do with guns? Oh, let's get teachers, arming teachers, so we'll make sure there's no...
So let's talk about that then. Politicians, you're saying. Yes. Obviously, a lot of people look to them. They make the decisions, essentially. Why is there not being more done by the politicians to at least have a discussion on gun control? Maybe not I can't just say, let's make all guns illegal. I doubt it's going to be a possibility over there. But why is there not more done by the politicians? Is there a reason they're not doing something?
See, what I would say is this. I can understand if the politicians, looking at reality, all turned around and said, you know what, we've got to do something about dealing with guns. And the way to deal with it is by getting less guns on the street, by banning assault rifles, etc., 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 right? But they're not even saying that. Most of them are saying guns are not your problem. Right? It's the person holding the gun that's a problem. Well, if you don't have a gun to hold, then you ain't got a problem. It would be my argument.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So, and I'm for, don't get me wrong, I've put my cards on the table many times. I think all the police in the United Kingdom should carry guns. Because we do know the gun's been invented, we do know some people have them, and we do know when issues are required that require immediate action that you should be able to deal with it. But I know, in the United Kingdom, if you were to shoot somebody incorrectly, or even correctly, you're going to go on trial, you're going to go in front of the Old Bailey, and you're going to be standing for your life to see whether you can live in normal society. Because I knew... Even if I saved the Prime Minister's life whilst I was doing my job, I knew that the very next day they're going to be looking at me, looking at every angle, looking at every reason why I did it, and they're going to want to put me in front of a court.
You've got to justify why you
right? And I'm going to have to justify fully, not just throw some, I'll write it up. No, not in Britain. Right, now, the problem with the United States is I don't think police have to do that. I think police can write themselves out of most things, and that's because people have fallen for the gun trick. And this is why I'm coming back to you politicians. The gun trick is, we keep you safe.
Yeah.
And it translates to, we keep you safe, wealthy middle-class people. That's what it translates to. So that's why we need to do this and this. And in order to keep yourself safe, you wealthy middle-class people can have a gun. That's what they're saying. Now, they know that everybody can have a gun. But they play it that we're saying wealthy middle-class people can have them. The criminals are getting hold of guns. Oh, read for that, people they don't like. Whatever. Oh, the criminals. We have to stop the criminal getting the gun. Or we have to deal with the laws that when the law enforcement comes, it enforces itself against criminals. Right? That's what politicians are playing. Why are they playing that, which was your question? Because many of them are funded by bodies... NRA, National Rifle Association example, that give multi-millions each year to politicians. There was a figure that said something like 28 million to the individual who they wanted to win the election as president. It's an industry that each year in the United States is worth something like, and I did have the figure written down at one stage, 63.5 billion, not million, $1,000 million every year.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right? How are you going to prevent guns when that industry's worth that much money?
So what's the solution?
You got to start again. Or
What does that look like?
Or you, and this is what's happened, you accept what's going on. And when you live in that country, you say, it ain't going to happen in my neighbourhood. Mine's a nice, quiet neighbourhood. So then, this is what happens. You get the opposite from what we'd be thinking was sensible. Stop guns. You get them saying, give everybody the chance to have guns, to walk around open carriage, because an armed society is a polite society.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the argument from the 18th century, isn't it? An armed society is a polite society. That's an 18th century argument. What you've got to understand is when that argument was made, people had swords.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
right? And it was an armed society, it was a polite society, because the swordsman had to be able to handle his sword, and the vast majority couldn't. Right? So they knew they weren't going to, for want of a better word, disrespect the other guy with the sword, because he may be a better swordsman than you, and when I got stabbed, it's going to hurt me, right? Yeah. Because I can't handle my sword. So I've got a sword, he's got a sword, he's coming at me, right? He's a better swordsman, I die. Okay. So that's an easy way. A gun, yes, it takes some skill to shoot one, but to be fair, if you've got an extended magazine and an assault rifle, and you're going to spray it around, at some stage you're going to hit the guy.
Yeah.
Even if you're rubbish at shooting, right? So it doesn't that arms society as a polite society doesn't work in the modern era. It may have worked in the 18th century because it was about capacity. But now in this era, it's not. I can give you a gun tomorrow you never shot in your life, which I know you haven't, right? And I'll give you a gun and I'll say, right, hit something over there, and you'll miss 9 times out of 10, but maybe one of them will do. Now, if you've got a magazine with 32 rounds in, good. If you've got a battle magazine with, 100 odd rounds in, because some of these clowns are carrying all sorts of stuff. Sorry, I shouldn't be saying that, but I'm angry that people just are allowed to carry assault rifles for warfare. But, you will hit something somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Right? Now, you might kill 10 other people. You might kill 10 over folk. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
But probability you're going to hit somebody else. Right? And that's where the problem lies. So that argument that politicians would like to use doesn't hold water in the modern era. But if you're being paid to keep your power, and it hardly affects me.
Surely, though,
I
they
don't
can't
get shot, do I?
I mean,
I don't get shot.
Surely, though, they have to have some. It must weigh on their conscience a bit. I mean, you're turning up at a school where 19 kids have died, little children have died, and you're standing there saying guns aren't the problem. When you're seeing this happening time and time and time again, do you not? What's wrong with these people?
Dan, you saw Ted Cruz.
I saw it.
You saw the governor of the state, and you saw them both, who advocated gun use and still advocate gun use. You saw them with those 19 little kids blown away. You saw them all saying guns are not the problem. You saw them say that. So tell me it's weighing on their conscience. Is it? Is it really?
To me, though, how are they being serious when saying that? How are they looking at what is going on in their country and saying guns aren't the problem? I just don't. To me, it just baffles me. It blows my mind. It really does.
Well, I actually blame the media too. I think the media have a responsibility. They're meant to be, the fourth estate. They're meant to be the part of society that holds people. That's what we give them credence. I don't think it's true now. I think the media is partisan. I think half of the journalists, and journalists, you can come at me, I think half of them are not doing their job. Yeah, that Channel 4 lady should have the other day said, Senator Cruz, you're talking rubbish.
Well, this is the thing. If they say this, then they're going to be pulled from the channel. No, this is the problem.
Well, it shouldn't be pulled from Channel 4. Surely she said she should know enough about America and the rest of the world to be able to turn around and say, no, school shootings do not happen en masse anywhere else. They just don't. So you're wrong, Senator. They don't happen. 40,000 people aren't murdered each year. It doesn't happen. Police don't murder 3,000 people in. Yeah, you might get it in Brazil. You may get it in Mexico.
Yeah.
Right? You may get it in 2 or 3 places around the world. But in most average places around the world, I don't care whether that's in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, you do not get...
We're not
South America.
We're not even talking about an average... We're talking about the richest country in the world.
Exactly.
We're talking about the land of... What is it? The home of the free.
Milk and honey, blah, blah, blah. Like Chile, they don't go killing people left, right and centre with guns. It just doesn't happen. So even in South America, where you might think, well, if you're saying that, some South American countries are high up on it, you look at Chile, and I think its figures on it's 0.1 whatever per 0.3 something or 0.5 per 1,000 people. So they aren't shooting people left, right, and centre. So it's not everywhere, Senator Cruz. It isn't. It isn't. It's places that have been flooded with weaponry, and you're seeing this now in places like Jamaica. Right?
Yeah.
They're flooded with weapons, and next minute they're shooting each other. Right? Didn't happen before, but now they're shooting each other. Barbados, even, I saw the other day, shooting each other. Not at the scale of the United States, but, for that small place, quite a lot of people being shot, because now they're flooding it with weapons, because there's a drug movement through there. Right? So this is where the problem lies. So we can see that causal link. Yeah, we can see that when criminals get it, bang, that's your problem. Right? But it's not just criminals in America, is it? It's everyday normal people. It's Joe Soap who gets angry for whatever reason. He has a gun in his car. He pulls the gun out of his car and he shoots somebody.
Yeah.
Instead of fisticuffs, instead of even a knife, let's say we're going at it
and
with
also
a knife.
as well, it's a lot more personal when you're up with a knife. A lot of people don't want to be doing that sort of thing. With a gun, it's easy. You pull a trigger. It's like you say, a computer game. Pull a trigger and it's done.
It's done. Job's done.
Yeah. So, okay, hypothetically speaking, you're in charge of that country, you can make up the rules, what's the solution?
I'm the President of the United States?
Yeah.
Frankly, I don't think I can get my laws through.
Okay.
That's the problem. I don't think I can get my laws through.
Yeah.
But what I would be is extremely vocal on it.
Yeah.
Now, I could imagine that they'd say, oh, don't say too much, Mr. President, our party won't get voted in. I say, bollocks, excuse my language. I say, I'm going to do that. I'm going to say it, because this is an outrage. This makes us as a country look terrible.
Yeah.
And it isn't always about, let's throw them in prison. Because that's the other side to that coin. Let's throw them all in prison. No, it's about, let's get the weapons off the streets properly. Let's not do it incorrect. Let's get them off the street properly. Let's sell no more weapons. Let's make it illegal. Now, as I said before, does he get that through? But he's saying it. Let's make them all illegal. You know, it's an amendment, folks.
Yeah.
It's a Second Amendment.
Yeah.
The right to bear arms. That's the whole point. It can be amended. Yeah, you said it there.
Yeah.
I know we're laughing because it's just an amendment. It isn't that some angel's flown down and said this is a pillar of stone and you can't do anything with it. It's an amendment. And amendments can be amended. Right? It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. You can change it. There's a whole load of amendments that have been changed. So you can change that. It's not a given that nothing can happen with it. Now, you're going to turn around and say, I will fight to the death to keep my weapon by my side. You can ask yourself a question, why?
Yeah, exactly. Why? If you don't need it for protection, then why do you need it?
Well, they're going to say they need it for protection.
But if everyone hands them in, everyone complies, then
correct.
You don't need it for protection.
Well, they're going to say, well, they won't comply. Everybody, all the good people will comply, and the bad people won't. That's what they're going to say.
It looks essentially like we're too far gone, and we've got to a stage, or they've got to a stage where they've just decided we're going to have to live with it. Is that what you think?
I don't believe it. But I believe the system they're in allows that. Because I know example recently when in New Zealand had the problem, right? The Prime Minister got together with the Cabinet and others and they said, right, no more of these type of guns. Bang. That's it. It's the law. It's the law.
Yeah.
Vote us out if you don't like us. It's the law. Right? And that has gone a long way to preventing these guns. In fact, the guns are bought in from Australia, as I understand it, or trying to be bought in. So this is the problem. You can change it if you've got the balls as a government to do that. You know, how do you get 400 million weapons off the streets? Big problem, isn't it?
It's a very big problem.
It's a big problem.
Big problem, yeah.
So that's the other thing. So you'd have to have, like they do in Australia, who did this overnight, by the way, because Australians carried weapons like Americans did. You know, they stole that land from Aboriginals and needed weapons to kill the Aboriginal and all the rest of it.
Do you know much on that then? How did they go about it following that school shooting?
What they basically did is they got into Parliament, got together, they made a law that said these weapons are illegal, and they made practically most weapons illegal, albeit that they've got some that are still there because they've got people who hunt kangaroos or whatever else to keep things under control. Well, most weapons, and it's a control by police, so you can have them. But they had an unending, and it is an unending amnesty. Anybody can put a weapon in as an amnesty.
And the majority of people comply.
Because the police are going to make sure you do comply, and the systems and if you get caught, the fines are strong enough for it to, because you're going to have to put fines in place. So if you get caught, you're going to have strong fines or imprisonment or whatever that might be. Yeah.
So surely that can be implemented in the US.
It could be.
Obviously,
yes.
It's going to take a long time for that to happen.
Take a long time for that,
and it's on a larger scale. But surely that is a possibility.
I believe it is a possibility, but I don't believe it's a possibility in the way their politics function, because the politics is 4 yearly cycles, and once you finish one cycle, you're already going through the next cycle. Yeah. So you will be hit straight away as soon as you start mentioning it. You know, you're going to be hit. And if you can't be, so like now, you've got a president who, you know, is and does feel a lot against guns. He is trying to do something with it. He was put in that role by President Obama to prevent the guns, and he tried to take some action. They couldn't get anything passed after Sandy Hook. They couldn't get anything passed, which other children were killed. Yeah. They couldn't get anything passed. But he tried to do that and tried. But you see, what will be happening is, we know you, Mr. President, won't do it anymore. But what about the party? So he'll be told, think about the party when you bring it in. Yes, been some gun laws about, try and make a little bit of a change. Try and say assault rifles of a certain calibre, you have to wait for a week to get it. But they're not really saying, like I would say if I was voted in, probably I wouldn't get voted in the first place, and I was voted in, I'd turn around and say, no guns.
Yeah.
No guns. No assault rifles. Ever. Finished.
Yeah.
Anybody who has them, legal. Overnight. Illegal. Right? And if you have them, amnesty, you can hand them in, and we'll pay you. We'll pay you to hand your weapon in.
Yes.
There you go. You get paid for it. Yeah? There you go. I tell you now, that war in Ukraine, which, you see the president crying over and all that stuff, is not going to lose as many deaths as they are on the streets of the United States.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
I'll tell you that now. And so you've got to ask yourself a question. Why is he happy to be sorrowful for what's happening in the Ukraine? Not a problem. One should be. And for any other war what's going on, but not willing to deal with it in his own land. Why are they willing to deal and fight a war in Vietnam for X amount of years when they're not willing to stop the carnage on the streets in the United States? Why are they willing to do actions to stop weapons of mass destruction, which there weren't any, in Iraq, and not willing to fight the battle on the streets where people are dying day in, day out on the streets because they're killing each other? So you've got a big problem there.
So what we're saying then really, is we're saying that people are choosing power and money over the lives of the country's children, essentially, or the citizens.
I think so, because I don't just want to pick it on children, because that can be a more thing. Oh, children, Don't get me wrong.
Adults are dying as well. So
people are dying, because if you don't stop the people that are dying, you're not going to stop the children that are dying.
Yeah, of course.
So you've got to stop it all. You've got to be. Give me a reason for an assault rifle.
The only reason for an assault rifle is to have a weapon that is more powerful than the person you're going against, essentially, and it's for warfare. It's for going into a war zone. It's not for carrying on the streets of New York or carrying on the streets of Texas, wherever it is. It's to kill someone.
Do you know what the irony is, though?
It's to kill someone.
Do you know what the irony is, Dan? What? You can walk around with that gun on the streets of Texas, or on the streets of Georgia, or the streets of, there's a whole lot of states that are open carry,
AR-15s.
Where you can walk around with that one, all your kit on you, and when I saw that in the States, I said, well, it must be old Bill. You're not police, no, you're just Joe Soap.
Yeah. I don't know what the...
How does that work?
Yeah.
How does Joe Soap walk around with an assault rifle?
Yeah.
Just tell me, I can't figure out how that works. I don't know how Joe Soap, by that I mean, ladies and gentlemen, everyday man and woman, walks around on the street with an assault rifle doing his shopping. Why do you need
ludicrous.
that? Or even a sidearm, to be fair. Why are you walking around doing your shopping with a sidearm? Why do you need it?
I think
if you're an officer of the law, understandable. Right? Understandable. I got no problem with it. But if you're just a normal guy and gal, why in your car do you need, X amount of weapons knocking about? Or even in your house, to be fair. Why do you have laws that say, if you come onto my grounds, I can shoot you? Well, he might be the postman.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. It really is.
I can't understand it.
Yeah.
It doesn't, I can understand if you feel a threat and you've got an actual threat against you.
And your life's been threatened.
And your life's been threatened. And you've gone through a system and you got the police and they say, well, listen, I've got a real problem, kind of. And maybe in that time, because there's loads of weapons knocking around, maybe you would say, after we've looked at you and assessed you fully, you can have a weapon and it's registered and blah, blah, blah. I could see that, Maxim. That would make sense.
You know what I'd love to see? I would love to see the statistics of the amount of people that have been victims of a gunshot wound but when it's been their fault. So essentially, when someone has been protecting themselves and shot someone else. Because I doubt it happens very often. So how often do you really need to protect yourself?
Right. I tell you what I do know is, and that's a figure that I have seen, a person who has a gun in her house likely has a member of their family that dies by a gun 200 times more than if you don't have one.
Yeah.
So that suggests to me that they get shot. They shoot themselves. They're cleaning the gun, they're doing this, they're doing that, or there's an argument happens and they pick the gun up and shoot someone, or whatever. So in other words, if you don't have the gun in the house, you can't get shot.
I mean, I don't know anyone who's killed someone in self-defence. I've never heard of it well, apart from you might hear it with police who shot in self-defence.
Yeah.
But you very rarely see a situation where someone has pulled a gun on someone and the other person has managed to shoot them first defending themselves.
Yeah, because you need to be skilled.
Very rarely happens.
There you'll need to be skilled.
So this is the point. How really you don't need to carry a weapon to protect yourself, because at the end of the day, if someone wants to pull a weapon on you and shoot you, it's probably going to get it done.
That's a very good point. And also, if you are a responsible gun owner, let's use that terminology, and you have your gun locked away and somebody storms your house... Well, unless you've got the gun ready there, ready to rock and roll. I mean, when I used to carry my weapon, I'm carrying it in condition one, i.e. one up the spout, ready to go, because I know somebody trying to kill somebody, it's instantaneous, and you've got to do, he's killing you from 7 metres, 3 metres, 4 metres away, and you've got to be able to draw extremely quickly and shoot somebody extremely quickly. Right? I mean extremely quickly, in points of a second.
Yeah.
And you've got to be accurate to shoot that one person you want to shoot and not 5 other different people. And that takes training basically all the time. Right?
Yeah.
So if you're a responsible gun owner not doing that, and you haven't got that capacity and capability, and you've got your gun locked away in your cabinet, and somebody kicks in your door, a burglar or whatever comes into your house, 9 times out of 10, you're probably not going to be able to do anything with it. Now, I can imagine you're in a big house, let's say you're a wealthy person in a big house, and you hear somebody downstairs, or you've got a silent alarm and it comes off, so you can get in, you can open your thing up, open your cabinet up and you're ready, and you've got your gun ready by your side in case he comes into your bedroom. I can see that. I can see it.
Yeah.
I can see it. Do you then go downstairs and attack and go after the person? Because if you go downstairs and go after the person, you're now putting yourself at risk. You're now coming into combat with the person. Right? Now, the person may have a gun, they may not have a gun. But you're coming into combat. You're happy to go into combat with them. When surely the thing to do is call the police and say, "Please, I've got somebody here." And then you're sitting in your room hoping they don't come in. And if they do come in, you've got your defence.
Yeah.
So that would be a defensive action. I can see that. But I would ask you the same question as you asked me. How often does that happen?
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often.
I would say that's highly irregular. I'd say what does happen, and I've seen it, and the bloke went to court for 5 seconds. In fact, he didn't go to court. He was found not guilty already. But he had nothing to answer criminally. He knew his neighbours had gone out. This is a factual case. He knew his neighbours had gone out. And he saw 2 fellas who he said didn't belong in the neighbourhood. What that means, I can only let you guess at it, right? I can only allow you to guess at it.
Yeah.
Okay? So he says, I saw 2 fellas who didn't belong in the neighbourhood in my neighbour's house.
Okay.
Right? Or in fact, it wasn't his house, on the drive of my neighbour.
Okay.
They didn't belong in the neighbourhood. Okay? So he goes and he calls police. He said, police, 2 people, 2 guys don't belong here, blah, 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 blah. And the police said, right, close your door, lock yourself in. He says, hell no. I know my rights. He went out, got his assault rifle, right? Went outside, these 2 fellas in there. They may have been burglars, I don't know. Shot them both dead. No crime to answer. How does that work?
Yeah. Your life's not in danger. Do you know what I mean? His life wasn't in danger. That guy's life wasn't in danger. He did not need to come out of his house. Surely you've gone out there and you've murdered someone.
Exactly. How does that work? How is that no crime to answer?
But this is a mentality over there.
And I'll tell you an absolute opposite twister of it. Right. Colleague of mine, special branch. Mm-hmm. Right. He's protecting the Israeli ambassador. Mm-hmm. Right. This is 1980s. A terrorist from the Abu Nidal group. Okay. He comes out of the Dorchester Hotel in London. Dorchester. Fella has a Scorpion machine gun. It's a small machine gun, loads of rounds in it. Fella goes, brr, shoots the ambassador. Right? Shoots him. My guy who's come with the ambassador draws out his weapon. In those days, it was Smith & Wesson 64, little 2 pea shooter gun. Pulls his weapon out. Fella runs off. Fella had already, as he pulls his weapon out, the fella had already clipped his scorpion eye. Jammed. Right?
Okay, yeah.
Jammed. My man sees this. Fella runs off, and he's unjamming his weapon as he's doing it.
Yeah.
He's trying to get around like unjamming it by racking it. Right? Racking it. Half turns, my mate, boom, one round in him, fella goes down. Runs after him, kicks the weapon out of the way. Got him. He's already told the other uniform there to look after the ambassador and get out an ambulance. Right? It's 1980s, it's not mobile phone time, is that? He gets put in front of a court. This big guy. And has to prove that he had a reason to shoot him. Because they were saying, well, the bloke's running away. Why are you shooting him? He's not threat to you. He's run off. You've just said the gun is jammed. So why did you shoot him?
Yeah.
Right? And he had to explain quite rightly. Well, the fella half turned and I thought he'd cleared his weapon. Right? Because he was obviously trying to clear it as he was running off. That's Britain.
Yeah. This is a complete contrast.
And that's an officer saving the life of an ambassador of a foreign country, which the shot that killed that, well, didn't kill him, it paralysed him for life, that ambassador, caused a war in Israel and Palestine. They used that as the reason to attack Palestinians, and thousands of people were killed.
Yeah.
Right? So he's carrying out a political perspective to prevent problems, found the individual who did it, went after the individual bravely, put one round in him from a distance, got the weapon out of his way, and he's got a trial going for.
Yeah.
Your man in America, no reason to come out at all.
Yeah.
Kills two people.
Justified shooting.
Justified. Don't even go near a court.
Crazy.
Right? How, you're inciting people killing people if those are your laws.
Yeah.
You're literally inciting people to kill people. I mean, can you think of any reason why that would be positive?
No. No reason at all. I mean, to me, it baffles me. It always has. It always will. It's just, it's crazy to me. It really is. I mean, you hear it over here because we've obviously got a big problem with knife crime.
Yes.
And a big problem. And you've always, I mean, when I was a kid and I was going to school, I always heard it on the news, whatever, and they were saying, if you carry a knife, you're, I think, 10 times more likely to be stabbed and to stab someone else. So I think this is just the problem in America. If you've got open carry, any sort of little argument, is just going to escalate into a shooting.
Correct.
And this is the problem.
But we come back to the polite society as an armed society, don't we? We come back to that because you're absolutely right. If I've got a sidearm, and your man might have a sidearm, right? You've got open carriage, and obviously you've got carriage where you can have concealed carriage. And in some states, you've got to have a license to have a concealed carriage. But you think he's a criminal anyway, so you've got your open carriage weapon. He knows you've got your open carriage weapon. He has not backed down, right? So you may then be thinking, well, if he can see I've got an open carriage, maybe he is carrying. Right. Now, with your sword, it's everybody knows when you're out, and then you put your hand on your sword, and you both put your hand, and then you walk off. Sorry, mate. Blah, blah, blah. Done. But with your pistol, you're thinking, well, hang on, right? Maybe I better put rounds in him before he puts rounds in me, right? Because it's simple. That's why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's why it can't work. So the people who make these arguments, like your Senator Cruz, who says, all we need to do, I couldn't believe it, all we need to do is give every teacher a gun. That's what the law is we should be making. That's what he said. The law we should be making is that all teachers have to learn how to have firearms training and save things. So now, Joe Soap Kid plays up in a class.
How long is it going to be? I was going to say that. How long is it going to be before a teacher's had a bad week and ends up killing the kids? I mean,
well, exactly. You can see it, can't you?
It's going to happen, isn't it?
Joe Soap Kid then, or Joe Soap Kid grabs the weapon of teacher because teachers grabbed all of him for whatever reason. And next, because what he's saying is, it's not a weapon in the side, it's the weapon you carry. That's what he's saying, Cruz. You're carrying it. So Joe Soap Kid grabs teacher's weapon. Now, every police officer knows when you're carrying. When I'm carrying, you're always conscious that you're carrying, and you're thinking, right, what's my defensive action?
Yeah.
You're looking at your defensive. Well, in a school situation, you're not in a defensive action, are you? In a school situation, you're basically at school.
Yeah.
So he grabs your weapon, messing around, grabs your weapon, Now you've got a problem because he's now grabbed your weapon.
Yeah.
Right? Other teacher comes by, bang, we're into war, aren't we? We're into fighting with guns.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work, does it? Because it's overkill. Because a police officer can walk around defending his weapon at all times, and in some of the old British colonies like Hong Kong or in Kenya or wherever, when everybody used to carry, the British they used to have their weapon, and in Northern Ireland, you used to have the weapon on a lanyard. So if you pull it, it's still on your lanyard, so it's still held, right? Singapore does that in various other places. It's still on your, for uniform police, still on your lanyard, right?
Yeah.
So that way you've got some control of where the weapon's going. But teachers not going to be like that. Teachers not running around defending. No, teachers not there to stop the bad people. Teachers just there to teach a class.
I mean, when they're given these, because I've obviously seen it. I watched a news program about it, and they did say that actually, and it showed a group of, I think it was 4 teachers in the school, and they're all showing their weapons off. I mean, I wonder how much training they actually receive as well.
Where did they have their weapons? These 4 teachers.
Well, the head teacher actually had hers in a drawer locked in a gun box and everything. So I thought if someone came in there, she's going to be struggling to protect herself in the first instance. But the other teachers, the actual teachers who are teaching the classes, they had them on their waist. So they were open to the students could see them. And they actually said that, because what they were actually trying to do with this news is they were actually trying to promote it. They were trying to promote it and saying it's a good thing. And they were interviewing the kids and they said, do you feel safer? And the kids said yes. And they said, we only feel safer when we can see that the teacher's got a gun. Now, to me, this it's completely bonkers. It's completely bonkers that we've got to a state where you have to have your teachers carrying guns in schools.
Well, that will mean, won't it, that the children will grow up thinking the only way I'm safe is if I have a gun.
Yeah, so what does that say for the future generation of
It's
kids?
more guns, isn't it?
Yeah.
So instead of 63 billion,
yeah.
it's even more.
Yeah.
So, so the gun people are happy. Of course they are.
Yeah.
So you see, this is the craziness of that situation that they've got themselves into. And so, look, United States, we're not trying to do you down. We're not trying to say that, everything's bad in your country. We're not saying that.
No.
What I am trying to say to you is, United States, look at how some other lands do it. Look at how your closest neighbour, Canada, does it. Example. I don't think Canada has even had one single school shooting.
They had 2.
Did they have 2? Right,
2
okay.
between 2009 and 2018. They had 2. Whereas the US had 188. So, 144 times more.
So, you've got to ask yourself that question. I mean, look at the death rates in Canada per weapon. It's actually quite low.
Yeah.
It's in the 1.3, I think, per thousand, where you are at 12.6 per thousand. You've got to ask yourself a question. Is that right? In the wealthiest country in the world? Why? Why are you having this? So we're not trying to do you down, or as we'd say in the United Kingdom, do your legs. That's not what we're trying to do. We're not sitting up saying, we're better than everybody else. We're not saying that. What we're saying is, question your politicians. Ask them why they're happy for carnage to happen on your streets. And it is that. Don't fool yourselves. It is carnage. You are losing 40,000, 37, 40,000 a year. You are losing that in people's deaths. You go through your Vietnam War, you lose 50,000 people. Indeed, the Second World War for you, 1941 through till 1946, okay? That Second World War cost you 450,000 dead. Right? Look at what you're saying. If you're having 40,000 per year...
In 10 years, you're equaling the World War.
You're equaling a world war, where people were bombed en masse, killed en masse, shot en masse. Actual, full 100% total war.
These are just shootings we're talking about as well.
Yeah.
You've got to think about the other deaths that are coming in the country.
Correct. Correct. We're just talking about shooting. Plus, I'll tell you something else. The medical capacity of people in that Second World War, in comparison today, was zero. Now, imagine if half the people who were being shot weren't being saved in your hospitals. Indeed, it's quite interesting. We've sent doctors to America from the British military to be trained on gunshot wounds to your country, just to a normal hospital. Yeah. So you can get training for military actions. They're sending them to Washington, D.C., to wherever, to be trained. I mean, this is craziness. Think about it, what you're doing. So military doctors are being trained how to save people's lives from gunshot wounds in your regular cities. I mean, this is just incredible.
Yeah.
You've got to look at that because, you are second to none in dealing with that issue. The shame is that you shouldn't be second to none. You should be thinking, well, where can we send which war can we send our guys to so we get trained up? Yeah. Not, hey, it's normal. And we spoke earlier on about knife crime in Great Britain. Well, in Great Britain, on average, each year, in the United Kingdom, a population, by the way, 1/5 of yours, when you put it all together, 68 mil. So it's about, 1/5, let's say, of your population. The rate of homicide is around about 625 a year. All sort of homicides, anything that you can call a homicide. So that can be you driving a car into somebody and people get killed in the car, whatever it is, and I'm talking by accident. But it can be a homicide, that. So it's about 625 a year, around that area. Why are you having 40,000 in guns alone? I'm not talking about you strangling people, people being stabbed.
Yeah.
So you've got to ask yourself a point. It can't be right for your society. You have to ask about your society. So that's what I say, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a get down on the US. It's hopefully a one where citizens say, we will not accept this anymore. Something has to be put in place to deal with this issue, politicians. We will not accept the old game of, we're the best in the world and we don't have the problem. I'm just telling you, only you is having this problem in reality.
The rest of the world is looking and are absolutely dumbfounded.
Yeah, even in lands like Zimbabwe, who's got, thousands of % inflation, who've got very little going for many of the people outside the cities, and the cities are okay, but outside the cities, right, who are living in dire straits, who are basically living off $1 a day, maybe, yeah, who don't have... Even in countries like that, they are not killing each other. I mean, the death rate in Zimbabwe is incredibly low in comparison. Incredibly low. 0.6 per 1,000. Right? And you're at 12.6 per 1,000. You've got to ask yourself a question. Why is that happening? I'll leave you with that, guys. Yes, people want to come to the US, and Cruz is absolutely right. A lot of people do want to come to the US to live in the US. But you know what happens for many? Or at least for enough? Their dream is shattered when their loved one's shot dead. I'll leave you with that.
Take care.
Take care. See you again next week.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe for free.
Here is a working class spy telling his stories, the secrets, the lives of spies. Feel free to message Carlton King on all socials and give this show 5 stars on Apple iTunes and subscribe so you never miss a single episode. For your ears only.
More than a quarter of a century, I was a member of Her Majesty's Secret Intelligence Service.